It's Christmas, time of year. Our families by the fire, snuggled up like bunnies in the snow. It's Christmas, Christmas. Little birds are singing like a choir. Winter chill is nipping at your nose. I've been waiting all year for this. Grab your cocoa and we'll reminisce. Oh, how I love when Christmas comes around. It's Christmas, birthday pie. Who cares? It's still divine, so fine. Give me all the whipped cream you can find. It's Christmas, records on, trim the tree and sing along. Watching Hallmark movies all night long. I've been waiting all year for this. Ugly sweaters I just can't resist. Oh, how I love when Christmas comes around. When it comes around. It's Christmas, candlelight, midnight carols at the church. Singing let there be peace on earth. I don't need a single gift. There's no present that compares to this. So I just love when Christmas comes. I love when it comes around. Oh, I just love when Christmas comes around. You know I love when Christmas comes around. It's Christmas, time of year. Our families by the fire, snuggled up like bunnies in the snow. It's Christmas, little birds are singing like a choir. Winter chill is nipping at your nose. I've been waiting all year for this. Grab your cocoa and we'll reminisce. Oh, how I love when Christmas comes around. It's Christmas, birthday pie. Who cares? It's still divine, so fine. Give me all the whipped cream you can find. It's Christmas, records on, trim the tree and sing along. Watching Hallmark movies all night long. I've been waiting all year for this. Ugly sweaters I just can't resist. Oh, how I love when Christmas comes around. When comes around. It's Christmas, candlelight, midnight carols at the church. Singing, let there be peace on earth. I don't need a single gift. There's no present that compares to this. So I just love when Christmas comes. I love when it comes around. Oh, I just love when Christmas comes around. You know I love when Christmas comes around.
All right, we're live. One more time. Okay, so I think this is an episode, what, almost like 4 or something, late night coffee show. So, for whoever is joining this late at night, you should be sleeping. But if you're not, well, welcome to joining my private study club. I did one, I think, last night, and surprisingly, a lot of people joined in. No, it wasn't last night, 2 nights ago. Last night I was busy making a music video for my daughter, a gingerbread house. So if you haven't watched that, check it out, okay, and tell me what you think. By far, it was my wife's favorite B-roll music video that I made for her. So yeah, so I was busy doing that, and today, every day, typically Christmas time, Jenny, my wife, arranges a Christmas holiday trip, and we like to go like a ski trip or here and there. We fly away or drive away, but because of obviously COVID-19 pandemic, we couldn't do that this year. So what she did was, every day we do something as a family together, right? So yesterday we did a gingerbread making. Okay, so that was a lot of fun. Today we went to a Van Dusen light festival. We had all the tickets and everything, and we went there. Guess what? It was closed because of this very restrictive Canada COVID-19 pandemic protocol in effect. The event was canceled. We didn't know. Apparently, they sent an email 2 weeks ago. Never checked it, never received it. So we ended up just visiting a restaurant within the park and had a great time as well. So here I am. I came back, picked up my younger son swimming. He's swimming every day at practice. So I picked him up from the swimming pool, brought him in, and then my daughter's asleep. So this is my favorite time of the day. to myself, and I'm going to enjoy tonight's video reaction. Okay. Now, before I start, I think one of the doctor who private messaged me regarding one of the procedure that Professor Son has demonstrated. It was quad 2 lifting the perforation, oral antral fistula perforation. He lifted it, and he didn't do how we typically repair, which is either we suture it or put a collagen membrane, and then before we do our grafting, what he showed, Professor Son did, was he used what was called gel foam. Okay, he's a gel foam quite a bit to kind of push it in, and that was holding everything together. And he didn't put any particular graft, he just used the PRF gel. That's it. Okay, so that's what he did. He didn't really repair traditionally, he repaired it using a gel foam. So the doctor was asking what he used. So if you haven't watched that video, it's still up there, live recording from 2 nights ago, so check it out. It's a long one though, it's almost like 2 hours long. Okay, so if you want more detail, check that out. So today I got something special. So tonight it's a different Gosu surgeon. Okay, Dr. PKB, we call him PKB. His Korean name is Kwang Bum. But in short, a lot of our faculty and a lot of the doctors around the world calls him Dr. PKB. He is a periodontist. Okay, but of course he's more well known for him being the CEO of Megagen Implant, right? So he is well known for that. But if you know about the history of Korean implant surgeons, he is considered one of the top 5 early adopter, early pioneer in the implant world. So before he became the CEO of Megagen Implant Company, he was a really prolific, bona fide, well-respected clinician. He's a periodontist, properly trained, and he did a lot of implant, and he still does quite a bit. So it is very unusual for a CEO of an implant company to be a dentist, not only a dentist, but a clinician, very capable clinician. So today we get to have a treat. He's going to, this is live, of course, it was live on air in November the 18th. I know many of you guys missed it. I missed it. So tonight is my opportunity to watch his surgery and see if there's something that I can learn about. So title tonight is Sinus Bone Grafting with Densah Burr and R2 Sinus Kit. Everybody knows about Densah Burr, and that little drill kit can do some amazing things, right? We all know that. I've covered that at last year. Was it November, October? Did a live surgery, Densah Burr, densification, and implant placement during my live online study club. But he's going to do something a little extra, with a little extra sauce, which is he's going to use a R2 sinus kit. I've heard about this surgical kit, sinus guided kit, which works well with the Densah Burr, but it's not available in Canada. I don't think it's available in North America. I think it's only available in Korea, so it's something very new. So he's going to showcase that, okay? Now, before I start, I just want to make sure that everybody can hear me okay? Can somebody just shout out and say the audio visual video is all good? Okay, before I start, all right? All good there? Hopefully? All right, so I'm just going to assume that everybody is good, and we're going to start. All right. All right, Parviz, thanks for joining. All right, Fu Chang Supra Chan. Supra is your middle name, Fu Chang. I always wanted to ask you. Okay. All right, Anthony, thanks for joining. I apologize for some of the doctors who are, like 4 hours in advance from a time zone. Now, one thing I do need to let you know is that Dr. Park is did a surgery in Korean. The majority of it is a Korean language, so I'm gonna try to do some a translation if I can. Okay, and I think he's going to start soon. All right.
안녕하세요.
So that's Park, PKB.
마지막 메가젠 라이브 서저리를 제가 하게 되었습니다.
So they had this live surgery presentation airing from South Korea, but a lot of us who live in North America missed it because of the obviously the time differential zone. So he was the last of the surgeon, live surgeon for the live series, and he's just saying thanks for joining. Hey, you know what? There is the subtitle underneath it. So there you go. You guys who can read English, help yourself.
사이너스 본그래프트 테크닉은 실제로 굉장히 심플하고 또 멤브레인이 잘 찢어지지 않는 그런 어떤 아주 좋은 특징을 갖고 있는 것 같습니다. 제가 오늘 수술할 케이스는 26번, 27번 미친 케이스입니다.
So he's showing the pre-op X-ray. He'll be performing a surgery today on the 26 and 27.
그리고 사이너스까지의 거리가 사이너스 플로우까지 거리가 약 한 6, 7mm 정도 되는 것 같습니다. 지금 임상 상태는
Now during the tonight, if you guys have any question, you can just post it, and we'll try to cover that during the session.
로스가 좀 있고요. 소켓이 조금 남아 있는 듯 해 보입니다. 대신에 이제 리치가 상대적으로 많이 넓어서.
So what he's saying is that we only have about 4mm, 5mm height, but the width is really, really good.
분석상에서 26번을 보시면 이렇게 되어 있는데 제가 더 많은 본그래프도 할 수도 있긴 하지만 요즘은 사실은 뭐 8.5mm 정도의 임플란트라면
So this is a borderline case, isn't it? Like some people might choose to go lateral. Like me, like honestly, with about 4mm, if I have to use to place 2 implant, I'll probably go lateral window because for me it's a lot quicker. But he's going to demonstrate using a R2 sinus kit, and he's going to lift about 4mm, 5 using a Densah burr, and without using any other additional craft material. Hi Jason, thanks for joining. So that's one of the advantages of a Densah burr is that if you're only lifting up to 3 or sometimes 4 in a decent bone quality, you don't really need additional lift. You don't need to use any other allograft or xenograft particulate bone. And 3mm additional lift is quite predictable. I find that with the Densah burrs.
수술 테크닉은 거의 동일하기 때문에 큰 문제는 없을 거라고 그렇게 생각을 하고 있습니다. 아주 큰 수술은 아니지만 요즘 그래도 상당히 핫한 덴사버를 이용하고 또
Yeah, Densah burr is because it is probably one of the most sold single drill kit, right? And it has replaced many of implant system user as a standard go-to implant drill. So instead of using 10mm length implant, he's using 8.5, using any ridge. And then he's explaining is because he's got about 5mm, 4 to 5mm bone height, so additional 3mm, easily with a Densah burr with that additional bone graft. And if you add those up, 5 plus 3, that's going to be close to 8, 8.5. And I do agree with any ridge system, especially if you use a slightly wider any ridge. 8.5 length in a posterior maxilla with any ridge is more than plenty. More than plenty. Hey Rachel, thanks for joining as well. Hey Sean, thanks for joining. Late night.
강동입니다. 제 라이브 서저리 유튜브에 조인해 주셔서 감사드립니다. 하도 오랜만에 이 라이브 서저리를 하다 보니까 준비가 조금 미흡한 점이 있을 것
So
같아요.
he's apologizing that he hasn't done a live surgery broadcast in a long time. So if there's any glitches, he's apologizing in advance.
There are some connections from abroad, but today I prepared everything in Korean, so forgive me to speak in Korean.
His English is pretty good, but he's saying that a majority of the viewers are in Korean, and a lot of Koreans that don't speak English. So he apologizes in advance that most of the language spoken in this session will be Korean. But that's okay. You guys have me. I'm doing all the interpretation for you, right?
상당히 핫합니다. 어떻게 보면 어떤 전용 임플란트 시스템에 따른 전용 키트가 거의 필요 없다고 할 만큼.
Yes, he's saying is that this, even though Densah Burr, a lot of people purchase as an adjunct drill kit, but it's sufficient enough of a length and the width to cover for majority implant system. And in reality, a lot of doctors are using this as a primary drill system.
보여드리려고 합니다. 지금 이 케이스는
So before he starts his surgery, he's going to go over some slides of some of the other surgery that he's done. And he's showing the right side doing immediate molar implant. So this is a case where he opened it up and the palatal wall is pretty much all gone. So these are a little bit challenging because there aren't that many available bone to do immediate molar. I mean, you could do a staged, but one thing that you will know is that many of dentists, including myself, who does a lot of number of implants and do implant for a living, and this is very common among a lot of these high-profile implant dentists in South Korea. They don't do staged approach. Majority of the cases, they live and die on immediate, and I'm one of those guys, right? I'm not saying that this is the right way or the wrong way, but the reality is, like in Korea, they say that was joking. We're having dinner one time. If you take a tooth out and ask the patient to come back a month later to put an implant, he might have gone to another clinic and get the implant done. So it's a very competitive environment too. I don't know if that is a driving factor, but immediate molars, immediate implant is very, very, very common in South Korea. Hi Scott. Hi Dan. Thanks for joining. Let's have fun tonight. And really, these are the cases that Densah Burr really shines, right? And in a soft bone, you're able to predictably expand the bone into an area there was no bone. And as many of you already know how the mechanism works, is the counterclockwise is what makes this bone Densah Burr, osteodensification. When you go forward, it cuts like any other drill, cuts away. But because of the fluid design, when you reverse it, it puts a side pressure and also apical pressure. And that is that implant. You just saw that one? They call it a blue diamond. Blue color, obviously, for Megagen is their proprietary surface, right? They call it X-bead surface, and that blue is when they process the surface. When there's a clean surface, it comes as a blue. If there's any white spots, the salt formation with the calcium, that means it's contaminated, so they discard it. So it's one of the quality control how they do in Korea. So all the Megagen implants, anyone, any ridge, and these implants have a blue coating on it. Now this implant right here is the new to the game. It's called the Octa implant. It has the same connection as the Straumann system, but only difference is that Straumann has a 4 ways of locking in. This one 4 times 2, 8 ways of locking in. So you can literally use this implant and prosthetically compatible with a Straumann implant system. Hey Arthur, hey Ed, how you doing? Thanks for joining. Shit, this is it. I want to get one of these. I've been asking to send me one of these, but they are not approved yet in Canada. It will be ready. This is a special design guided surgical kit to use with the Densah burr. So if you look at it carefully on the right side, it has the Densah burrs, okay? Right? The most used Densah burr on the right side. Bottom is the special made sleeve, okay? These sleeves. You need to put the sleeve onto these drills, okay? They're corresponding. And these here are the length. You know, like how casket has the different length, okay? Yeah, corresponding to how much of a drill is exposed, So that's that, okay? That's that. And also you got other drill right here, okay? Which is just a normal guided drill, most popular one. So you can use this single kit. You can do any guide surgery, like with the R2, right? Normal guide as well as a Densah burr guided. So it's a one kit does it all, right? I want one. I mean, there is a Densah burr guided kit, but this is not the same one. This is made specifically by Megagen for R2 system. And by the way, you don't have to use a Megagen implant to use R2. I've placed a Straumann implant using R2 system. I've placed, BioHorizon using an R2 system. So you just have to ask for a separate driver for your implant system.
요즘 많은 사이너스 테크닉들이 있기 때문에 어떤 것이라도 잘 기능을 하긴 하지만 기회가 되시면
So this is one of the other case that he did. There's hardly any bone, right? Like only 2mm bone, right? So there was a part of the failing bridge. He saved the 7, so mesial section, the 7, and polished it up. 6 used to be a pontic site. That's why there's only like 2mm bone height in the edentulous area. And the 5, he's going to do extraction and immediate implant. Because there's only 2mm, he's being very careful with the Densah drill in a reverse mode, right? And then step by step, he's approaching it. He's not going no more than 3mm, right? So when you have a very little bone, you don't want to push the drill beyond 3mm, and that's the guideline. That's the general guideline by Densah. And as you can see, it didn't tear. So I mean, if you want to know more about this here, there's a lot of information on YouTube, how the Densah burr works. But in a nutshell, you reverse it. You're not drilling out the bone. You're basically drilling in the bone, apically and laterally. Now, because there's only native bone is 2mm height, you do have to add some bone in this case, don't you? Right? Okay. So after you lift the 3mm with a Densah burr in reverse, you still need to lift enough to place 8.5 or 10mm length implant. So in this case, one of those rare cases where you're placing a bone graft.
이렇게 입구에 갖다 놓고 리버스 카운트 클록와이즈로 이렇게 돌리면
So what he's saying is that the easiest way to introduce this bone into the osteotomy is by reversing the Densah burr in a slow speed. And you can just gently use that as a plugger, and then it will, in a reverse motion, it will push the bone into the sinus.
임플란트가 실리플루 다이먼드
That's an octa implant.
보시기에 되게 쉽게 원래 충분한 본이 있는 곳에 식립된 것 같은 그런 느낌이 드시죠?
He placed an implant with this 2mm bone available, right?
스테빌리티가 좋아서 원 스테이지.
And the reason you're able to do this, you cannot get a stability with many of the implant design that's out there. Okay, that's one of the reasons why I like linear tapered implant, because parallel implant or some implant that it tapers and then the parallels out, when you torque them, sometimes you lose the stability right at the end. And you cannot use an implant that has a micro threads on the top either. Like an Astra, you cannot do this, right? The reason Megagen implant is so good for immediate placement and with a very little native bone available, my experience is that anyone and any ridge, they both have quite a linear taper, especially any ridge. Any ridge has a linear taper. It has a thread, goes beyond the taper body, but the thread is so thin. Okay, the hole is small, and the implant pretty much disappears on it. And once the threads all disappear, you still have a coronal part, where the platform switching happens. That's still widest part of the linear taper. That's why you are able to get the stability, even with the 2mm implant.
활동으로 힐링 어바트먼트를 연결시키고 추출했습니다. 실제 수술 시간은 뭐 되게 짧게
Hey Shane, thanks for joining. You should be in bed, but because you're not, thank you.
후에 파노라마 뷰입니다. 보시다시피 16번 위치가 메인 사이트.
And I think he used the bone, synthetic bone, I think. That looked like a synthetic bone. I don't think it was a xenograft. It looked like a tricalcium phosphate. I mean, I could be wrong.
잘 올라와 있는 것처럼 보이죠. 진짜 잘 올라갔습니다.
But you can also do this without any bone graft material. You can use a PRF membrane, PRF gel, put one in there, and because you're using an implant as a tenting, you can do that as well.
연습이 되신 다음에 시도하시는 게 좋을 것 같습니다. 오늘 제가 라이브 서지리로 보여드릴 케이스는요, 60세 남자이고요. 그리고
So today's case that he's going to do is 2.6 and 2.7.
한 3개월 전에 8월 달에 발치가 되었습니다.
Okay, so this is not an immediate case, but this is a case that is a early staged, okay, or delayed implant case. So instead of, a lot of us in North America, in Canada, when we talk about implant, and you typically talk about either staged approach or immediate approach. Immediate meaning you take the implant tooth out and put an implant, you bone graft, and then you put a healing abutment, and then wait 4 months and then restore. That's very common way. That's what I do majority in my office. Or second way is you take the tooth out, clean it up, put some bone graft material, and close it up. Okay, whether open membrane technique or closed membrane technique, you wait out 4 months and then you put an implant. That is a staged approach, right? 2. What they do a lot in Korea, I notice, okay, and I noticed from the other day from Professor Son as well, they do early delayed approach, meaning that they take the teeth out so that the soft tissue can heal properly, and they will only wait out like 2 to 3 weeks tops. Okay, that's just enough for the infection to disappear and soft tissue to get a little healthier, and then they don't wait 4 months. They wait 2 to 3 weeks, and then they do re-entry, and at that time they're going to do bone augmentation and implant placement. Okay, what's the advantage of that? You're not adding a lot of a duration from start to the restorative phase, but what you're gaining is soft tissue health. Okay, so I noticed that quite a bit these days with the surgeons from Korea.
발치된 상태의 힐링된 모습이고요.
So that's what he's showing here. So tissue,
티슈가 완전하게 힐링되진 않았습니다.
okay, it's not a complete healing, right? He's only waited like 2 to 3 weeks, right? But that's okay. That's enough.
현재 폰의 컨디션을
Right.
보시면
He's got enough tissue to work with.
6번 위치에 보시면 아직도 팔라탈 쪽에 소켓이 좀 남아 있는 것처럼 보이고요.
There's still a little bit of a socket, soft socket here, but that's okay. That's not bone, right? He's not expecting it to be bone.
좀 루즈한 상태.
So he's going to go in and lift it and put an implant. And if he needs to add some bone on top of it, he will. Right?
하는 데 있어서 문제는 없어
Yeah,
보입니다.
but he's still got enough to get stability.
덴사보의 이렇게 종류입니다. 이렇게 쭉 사이즈가 있습니다만은 오늘 제가 식립하기는 4.8에 8.5를 식립하려고 합니다.
His the implant that he wants to place is 4.5 by 8.5.
지금 수술을 하는 게 가장 편하거든요. 실제로
And people are asking why using 8.5, not 10 millimeter or longer. He said 8.5 is the easiest
콘크리트를 사실 할 필요가 없습니다.
because he can avoid bone grafting here.
이렇게
Okay, he's got about 4 to 5 native bone.
부분들이 파져져서
If he's only going to place 8.5 length any ridge implant, and he's going to use a 4.8 diameter any ridge. And by the way, 4.8 in any ridge is considered pretty fat. Okay, all right. So that's enough of surface area, and it's easy because he doesn't have to crack open the particular graft or any graft material.
정도 식립할 수 있는 그 정도에 쓰시게 되면 본그래프트도 없이 실제 본그래프트, 오토지너스 본그래프트가 되어서 사이너스 리핑이
And of course, the reason why you don't need bone grafting is that the 3 millimeter of a pushing motion of the burr, Densah burr, you're literally doing in some way autogenous bone grafting because you're transporting the bone that was in the native area and you're apically repositioning it. Okay, so that by the time you put the implant in, it is surrounded by the umbrella of native bone.
8.5mm를 식립하기로 했는데요. 3mm를 빼고 나면 한 5mm, 5mm나 6mm 정도까지만 렌스 드릴을 써서
So he's planning here. He only have to lift about 3 millimeters. So if you do it, the initial drill, lens drill, which is the initial precision drill, same thing. He's only gonna go into maybe 5 or 6 millimeter, okay, right below the membrane, and then he's going to subsequently use the rest of the drill, which is the Densah drill, to reverse, and it will penetrate into the sinus membrane. Yeah.
지금 이것은 사실은 그 1호, 2호 버입니다만은 이 정도까지 첫 번째 버가 접근한다.
Yeah, and he's not going to penetrate it using the thin burr. He's just going to reverse it and reach the working length about 1 millimeter or 2 millimeter below the height of the sinus. Okay,
이런 마인드로 갖고 가시면
that's the initial working length, right?
뚫리지 않고 사이너스 본그래프트가 잘 되는 것을 보실 수 있을 겁니다.
So sinus lifting crestal approach is like an endodontics, isn't it? Right? It's like a root canal. You get your initial working length, right? And once you establish that, and then you penetrate with, right, the subsequent working length.
빨간색은 소프티슈 정도의 본 덴시티밖에 안 된다라고 보시면 될 것 같습니다.
And then those of you who are familiar with an R2, the color tells you the density of the bone. So red means soft tissue density, and blue is a very soft D3, D4 density.
뭐가 들어가도 크게 디노데이션이 안 되는 상황입니다만은 뒤쪽도 한 10mm로 위에 플로어를 지나서 이렇게 식립을 해볼까 그렇게 생각하고 있습니다. 실제로는 4.8에 8.5 정도만 되면 되겠지만 앞쪽에는 4.8에 8.5, 뒤쪽에는 4.8에 10mm를 하면서
So he's going to do a 4.8 by 8.5 for the 2.6, the first molar. And for the second molar area, he's planning to do 4.8 by 10.
제가 케이스에 대한 설명은 이 정도로 하고요. 제가 환자분이 밖에 계시기 때문에
So he's going to go and bring in the patient
시간 주시면
in about a couple minutes, and then he will start the surgery. Yeah. All right. So any questions so far, guys? Okay. Out of this whole thing, one thing I was impressed the most is the R2 sinus guided sinus kit, new one, which I think will be very, very useful for me. But it's not available. All the good stuff, Canada is the last place to get, right? You know, we should all write a letter of complaint to a headquarter, huh? Just kidding. Just kidding. I love those uniforms those ladies are wearing. Very colorful. Some of the best surgical assistants are from Korea. They're so efficient. I saw them working in Korea one time. Man, very, very fast, very, very efficient. It's like a Santa Claus and elves, right? They work so well together. Okay, how you guys doing? Having fun, right? Enjoying it? That's a small drape. I'm surprised that they don't do a full body drape, right? I guess to save time and cost.
오른쪽으로 약간만 주시고요. 서지컬 스텐트가 준비되어 있습니다.
So that's a surgical guide designed for Densah Burr. Well, designed for Densah Burr R2 sinus kit. Okay. I know, Sean, I love new toys, but when I like one, I gotta buy like tens of them, right? Because I have to standardize it. That's the problem. Yeah. So what he's saying is that guide is good, but if the guide that doesn't fit well is useless. Yeah, that's the kit.
덴사보의 구성 그대로입니다. 그대로 구성이 되어 있고 왼쪽은 사이너스 키트가 들어있는데 앞쪽에 가이드가 있습니다. 여기서 이 스텐트를 쓰고 할 때 여기 두 개의 숫자가 적혀 있는데요.
There's two numbers to it.
두 개의 숫자가 이렇게 적혀 있습니다. 잘 보이시나 모르겠습니다만.
There's a 0.
여기 보면 0,
Mm-hmm.
5 있습니다.
And 0 and 5.
스텐트와 함께 쓰게 되면 이 가이드 키트를 쓸 때 제로입니다. 스텐트를 쓰지 않아도 되도록 스텐트 없이 가이드를 할 수 있게 하기 위해서 없을 경우에 앞에, 없을 경우에 뒤에, 스텐트와 함께 할 때 앞에 이렇게 구성이 되어 있습니다. 스텐트와 함께 쓰면 2mm 깊이로 들어가고 이건 3mm 깊이, 4mm 깊이. 스텐트 없이 하게 되면 5, 7.5.
Okay. All right. So what this is, right? Okay. They have it built in such a way that you can use this drill system with the surgical guide or without. So when you use it with this surgical stent, that means first number is 0. Okay. Second number is if you just put the sleeve in and you drill without the surgical stent, it acts like a casket. Okay. Those of you who know the casket is a freehand sinus lifting kit system, right? So you have an option, right? If you're in a hurry, you don't have a surgical guide ready. Okay, you know, I'm just going to use like a casket. Then you just put the sleeve on, put this on, and you drill. Okay, like a normal freehand crestal lift. But if you have a guide made for it, okay, because a guide makes the sleeve sit a little higher, right? Okay, so that means you have to add 5mm. So the second number corresponds to what he's saying corresponds to using the surgical R2 guide. Okay, I think that's brilliant. So June, if you're watching, June or Min from Megagen Canada, if you're bringing one of these in, make sure that I get a first dip at it because I definitely want to try it out. All right, so how do I feel about this? This is unnecessary evil. This is unnecessary evil. This is necessary evil. I have a love and hate relationship about this sleeve system. This is when you have to make something to retrograde fit into the the original system that was made without forward thinking. What do I mean by that? When Densah Drill came out, right, it was really good for condensing the bone and crestal lifting. But doctors who are using casket system, they were complaining that they wanted a sleeve system. And they were also complaining that they want a guided system to use with it. By the time the company received that request, they've already sold millions of these original Densah Drill, right? So instead of redesigning the Densah Drills, they retro designed a sleeve system that will fit the Densah Drill. Okay, so that's why they made the sleeves. They're a little clumsy to work with. It takes a bit of a learning curve. It does work, but it adds time to my surgery. That's the only problem. Yeah. So you gotta be precise where you put it, because if you don't put in the right level, right clicking in, it will click in. Okay, but if you don't do that, then your depth control is wrong, right? Hey Bedad, Javdan, and Navjeet. Okay, thanks for joining. So he puts the sleeve, the plastic holder, and then he puts the metal sleeve corresponding depth. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So he's put, I think, like 5mm sleeve. So the 5mm corresponds to not the sleeve length, but when you put that sleeve, 5mm sleeve, the amount of drill that is cutting, exposed above the sleeve is 5. It corresponds to the length that is exposed, right? Yeah. Like any drill system, guided drilling, a patient needs to be able to open pretty big, otherwise you can't use it, right? Especially R2. R2 requires patient to open pretty big because their barrel is pretty long. It's like a, what is it, almost 12mm barrel length, the guide. That's why it's so accurate, but also, you know, patient needs to be able to open pretty big. Yeah, so now he's put another sleeves on. So this is the clumsy part, right? It takes time. So it's not the fastest system, but it is a versatile system. Now he's reversing everything, right? He's reversing everything now from this moment on. So only drill that he said he's doing is the forward cut, is the lance drill at the beginning, just to get the initial working length, which is about a couple millimeters below the floor of the sinus. Now he's going to move up to, yeah. Now he's placing 8.5, and he's going to reverse and slowly move his way in. And when you're using a narrow, like a initial few narrow drills of a Densah going reverse, you got to be careful, right? Because a lot of the physics is that narrow the drill, doesn't matter if you're going to the reverse, there's a higher chance of perforation because of the smaller surface area, right? And he feels that the floor of the sinus, you feel that all of a sudden you feel the difference in density, right? Yeah. See that? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you'll definitely feel the sensation difference. Yeah. And you'll definitely feel the resistance because the drill is going in a reverse, right? You'll need to put a lot more pressure than your normal clockwise drilling motion. And what he's showing is that how do you know if it's actually the holder is fitting properly? when the hole is fitting properly, it will freely turn because it sits in that groove, right? So that's how you know.
가이드는 하나씩 있기 때문에 그래서 다음 드릴로 아시고요.
Okay, now he's increasing the width. So the wider you start to go, there's a less chance of perforation because you're increasing the surface area, correct? Yeah. Yes, that's the protocol. Okay, but if you're experienced enough, okay, you can pull it off. But my protocol, I do not like to penetrate through in until you reach about 3.0.
탈락돼서 입안에 떨어지는 일이 없기 때문에 상당히 견고하게 돼 있는데 이것만 손으로
Hello, Sungjun. Hello, Scott. Scott, you're becoming a regular at this late night coffee show. Again, like, see, the thing about Densah drill, there is a protocol, but it's only a guideline. And Densah drill is not like a casket where everything's set by recipe. Densah drill, once you get experience with it, and once you get the feel for how the drill works, you can do a lot. And like here, Dr. Park, even though initially he said he's only going to go 2 millimeter below with the narrower drill, but once he started drilling, he felt pretty good that this bone is pretty dense, and he felt confident that he can go a little bit deeper with this narrow drill and without perforating, right? So that's what Scott is mentioning. Okay, very sharp eyes, Scott. But the rule is that Scott is correct. The wider, if you're a beginner, you don't want to be perforating the sinus with a narrower drill. Okay, if in this case, if the final implant is going to be 4.8 by 10, you can easily start lifting with a 3 millimeter and wider drill, which will be safer. That's what I would recommend if you're a beginner. And also make sure that there's a copious amount of water. Not so much important when you're working on a soft bone like a posterior maxilla, but when you are using Densah burr in a reverse motion in a mandible, you gotta make sure there's enough water going down there, because definitely heat building up in a guided system, it is a well-known factor. Hey Andrea, how you doing? Hey Changik, how you doing, guys? Okay. So basically, he's just working up the width to achieve densification as well as apical repositioning of the native bone into the sinus, right? And that's how you are lifting the membrane without tearing, because the bone cushions it. What size drill is this? Where are we now? So he's using a 3.5 as a final drill, I think. Yeah, so he's saying that you have to make sure that it's freely rotating, otherwise it's not in the right groove. It's a little tricky to work with the holder. Okay, Scott, thank you. Oh, at least you're paying attention. 4.0. Yeah, 3.5, 4.5. See how the drill number works with Densah is a little confusing because it's taper drill. It's got two numbers, okay? Right. So 3545 refers to 3.5 is at the narrow bottom, 4.5 is the taper top, okay? 3545. So he's finishing up with the widest part, which is a 4.5, and the narrowest part, 3.5. That is a taper drill, okay? Thank you. Yeah, so basically if you can see my pointer right here, 3.5 will be down here, and 4.5 will be right here, okay? Yeah. Hi, Khan, how you guys doing? So now I think he's getting ready to place the implant. I think he's going to place a blue diamond, which is a nickname for implant, octa implant.
가이드 드릴의 홀이 5mm입니다. 물론 이거보다 더 와이드한 픽처 신경 파이기 위해서는 가이드가 하나 더 있어야 되겠죠. 와이드 홀을 위한 가이드. 그래서 지금 3.8mm 픽처가 들어갈 수 있도록 하겠습니다.
So he's going to use a 4.8 diameter by 8.5 length octa implant.
딥스레드 아니고 그냥
Well, the question was here, I think Majid asked, what's the difference between the gold and the silver Densah burr? I think the silver is the older version. All the new ones are gold. So, okay. He took the guide out to place an implant, right? Okay. Anybody know why? Okay, pop quiz. Okay. The problem is this, right? And this is not just the Megagen problem, but also a one guy system. Hyosin has this problem too, right? If you want to place wide diameter implant, you need to order in a guide that is wide hole, right? In this case, he had a guide hole which size is a 5mm, and he designed two of them, 2.6 and 2.7. But his diameter of the implant is going to be 4.8, right? 4.8. And that gets a little bit too tight, getting pretty close to that. And while it's going, it might side bind and might get stuck. So in order to put that implant, he should have ordered another guide with an extra large hole to place that implant, but he didn't. So what he's doing here is just taking out the surgical guide and just freehanding the position placement of the implant. That's main reason. And second is he wants to make sure that he feels the bone quality so that he can determine whether he's getting the right torque. If it's under torque, he needs to determine to put a cover screw instead of healing abutment, right? So it's not his drilling sequence was a fully guided, but placement is a freehand.
지금 가이드를 쓰고 들어가기 본이 좀 약해가지고요. 실은 가이드를 쓰게 되면 딥스레드를 쓸 수가 없는데 본이 좀 약하기 때문에 서지컬 스탠트 없이 픽처는 바로 들어가도록 하겠습니다.
Yeah. So what he's saying is that he does have a second guide ready, but because of the bone quality is poor, he didn't use that, right? He had it made, but he didn't use it for implant placement. Okay. So he's going to freehand it so that he can feel for the density of it, so he can control the torque accordingly. And as many of you guys know, like any ridge at the threads from a Megagen, you can achieve a pretty good torque, even a crappiest bone quality. Yeah, so this implant here, right, is not your typical anyone or any ridge, right? The connection is a Strawman equivalent connection. They call it octa connection. So, and the implant taper is similar to any ridge, but has a bit more, it's not as aggressive as any ridge. So think of it design as in between an any one and the any ridge, right? And people are asking how come I don't use it yet. I'll tell you the reason later on. Remind me, I'll answer to you after the surgery. So he's placing it. Oh, is he gonna get the torque or not? Don't know. That marks the 3mm, right? Yeah, that's 3mm. The one below the black line is 3. One above the black line is 4, right? So what it's checking here is to see if the implant is placed deep enough. So if it's sticking above the bone, he can feel the ledge, and then that means he has to put it deeper. Okay, but if he feels the bone around it, that means it's deep enough. See, that's the problem with the flaplet surgery, is that you don't know how thick the tissue is necessarily, right? So, but he feels pretty good with that torque and the depth, so he's going to move on to the second one, which he's going to plan to do 4.5 by 10. So he uses 3 surgical assistants. One is the actual surgical assistant, and he has 2 rovers. So the back one, he's gonna. So what he was saying is that if you want to save time using this guided system using a Densah burr, because if you're trying to change it yourself each time, right, it's going to take a lot of time. So what he says is that he ordered 4 of the sleeves, right, so that while he's drilling with the next drill, another assistant can preload that up, right, put the sleeves and everything. That's how that's the workflow to minimize the surgery time. But the question becomes, do you trust your assistant? Do they put the right sleeves, and do they put the peak holder in the right slot, right? Okay, so what he's explaining is two different type of guide drill that's meant for preparing the site before you use the actual guide drill. The first one right here, if you can follow my cursor here, that's a tissue punch. That's guided tissue punch. So some doctors want to use that first, and then remove the surgical guide, and then remove the soft tissue before you do it. Okay, I don't think it's necessary. Okay, but some surgeons want to do that. That's for what this one with the teeth are. Is that sometimes when you're doing a guide, but the bone is sloped. So by using the teeth around it, it levels out the crest of the bone, so that the subsequent drills are not slipping. Okay, so that's what the use is for. That's what he says. I don't think he says he doesn't use it, but there's some surgeons who likes to do a more cleaner surgery and knock yourself out. Okay. So he's just checking. Yeah. See that he used the tissue punch. He doesn't use it, but he's only using it just to show you that that's how it works. Okay. But he doesn't normally use it.
속 티슈가 안으로 말려 들어가지 않느냐 그런 걱정은 안 하셔도 되겠죠. 실제로는 거의 그냥 하셔도.
Yeah, but in reality, is that you don't need it. Yeah. Now, patient gotta open really big because it's a 7, right? Second molar. He's just using an initial precision drill, okay, just to mark the spot. See that he didn't even go all the way, right? Yeah.
이제 리버스로
Now he's going to reverse mode. He's going to reverse mode everything.
스텝 지금은 안에 본 덴시티를 우리 확인했는데 덴시티가 높지 않습니다. 그래서 원래 있던 사이즈를 하나씩 더 스킵해가면서 조금 심플하게 트레이닝을 해보도록 하겠습니다. 그게 해주시고요.
Now, what he's saying is that because the bone density is low, he's gonna skip the drills to save some time. Yes, he's having a hard time getting the angle right because the patient cannot open that much. It's hard because when you have a lot of water, what's the reflex? Patient wants to close to swallow, but because he wants to swallow, the mouth closes, but you're drilling. So what I do in my situation like that, I've got 2 suction going. One surgical suction for the surgical side, but the second intraoral suction, get the water out of the back of the throat. Okay. He's using everything in the reverse. Yeah, so this second assistance preloaded the peak holder and he's just double checking it. Yeah. 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 Open big, sir. Open the mouth. Yeah. Yeah, guided surgery is extra tough for a patient with a limited opening and TMG problem. Okay. Open big. Open big.
감사합니다.
He's pushing his tongue. 3.2, 3.8. So 3.2 on the bottom, 3.8 on the top. That's the drill size. Yeah. That's a lot of water. That's a lot of water. Three 3.5, 4.0. So 3.5 and 4.0. Well, that's the difference, right? Like when you're using a Densah burr, if you're coming from a casket user going into Densah burr, one thing that you have to reprogram your head around that is that, like a casket, you under prep it a lot, and then you let the implant do the squeeze and get the stability. Densah burr, you gotta prep more. You have to trust that by going to the larger size, you are condensing the bone laterally. Yeah. Now he's going to place it. I don't think he's going to use a guide. Yeah, I think he's going to freehand it.
아니 그러면
You know, one thing I really wish Megagen implants had was mount. I really wish they have mount. Many dental company, moved away from mount except Hyosun and Straumann. Those two are probably the only company that comes with the mount already with the fixture. Because in these cases, when you have a mount on the 2/6 implant, it's so much easier to gauge the direction and parallel. Okay, now he's got exactly 3mm below. Question is that enough? Okay. What determines how deep you need to place the implant, right? Okay. Well, nowadays the hottest guideline, the thought process is the what do you call the zero bone loss concept. Okay, right? Linkuvicius is a zero bone loss concept. That means you want minimum 3mm below the crest of the soft tissue, or preferably 4. Right? The rule of the 4.
하지만 그래도 아주 잘 식립이 된 것 같고요. 여기에 지금 원래 계획된 것보다 한 1mm 정도.
That's one thing about flapless surgery. It's very, very clean, and there's no need for suture.
때문에 제가 본 레벨을 체크한 다음에
So now he's checking because it's flapless.
1mm 정도
You definitely need to check it. Yeah. So he's what he will do is he feels that it's you need to countersink it because there's some
라인이 3mm인데요.
above the bone.
이제 3mm 위치로 위치시키도록 하겠습니다. 아, 그게
So he's gonna go a little bit deeper. Hey, Shaddad. Welcome back, my friend.
아주 본 덴시티 비슷하게에서 보이는 본 덴시티에 비해서 아주 센 스테빌리티가
I think he's got like above 50. He didn't use a teardrop because he knows that he's got a lot of density, so he shanked it.
둘다 보시다시피 정립이 잘 되었습니다. 본 레벨하고 텍스처 레벨.
Yeah, so he's checking the bone level, right?
그래서 요즘은 그냥 가이드 서저리만 해도 사실 우리가 굉장히 많이 편리하다고 했는데 좀 사이너스까지도 크게 하시고
Now he's placing ISQ.
플랩리스로 해낼 수 있다는 것은
Yeah.
덴사부의 도움인 것 같습니다. ISQ를
The question is, Shaddad says, Mark, when you don't countersink. For me, either I am at least at the level of the bone or I countersink. All depending on the tissue thickness. So for example, in the posterior maxilla, if the tissue is thick, more than 3mm, I don't countersink. I just sink it at the level of the bone. But in the posterior mandible, oftentimes the tissue is not thick enough, right? And even though my implant is at the level of the bone, if the tissue is, let's say, 2mm, then I will countersink additional 1mm to follow the rule of the 3, okay, if I can, right? So hopefully that answers the question. And that's basically a general concept of the zero bone loss concept by Linkuvicius. Yeah.
6번은 70 정도, 인서션 토크는 거의 50N이었고요. 뒤쪽은 50보다 더 높은 인서션 토크였던 것 같습니다.
Yeah. So insertion torque were both above 50 Newton centimeter torque, and they're doing ISQ reading.
76.
So he's got over 70, which is pretty good for posterior maxilla.
오케이, TH해 주시고요.
Do I measure ISQ for every surgery? No, I don't. I don't have time for that. But our prosthetic team do all ISQ measurement after 3-4 months of healing for our referring doctors. We measure ISQ, every single one of them. But I don't do it during my surgery time. All right, no problem, buddy. Okay.
지금 거의 저희 힐링 어바트먼트를 스캔 가능한 스캐너블 힐링 어바트먼트로 하고 있는데요. 이게 인트라올 스캐너를 갖고 계신 분들이 거의 아주 많으시니까 이렇게 하면 임프레션을 들 때 이 힐링을 제거할 필요가 없죠. 그래서 환자분이 불편함도 최소화할 수 있고 또
See, this is the part that makes me upset, right? I'm gonna rant a little bit here. You know what kind of healing abutment he used? He's showing off the things that's not available in Canada yet. That's a intraoral scan impression healing abutment. That's what it is. It's a dual function as a healing abutment, but when the time comes, 3 months, 4 months later, you want to take the intraoral scan impression, you don't have to put scan post. That is going to act like a scan post, right? That's all you have to do. So that means your CDA can take impression for you. How about that, right? Okay, isn't that something?
훨씬 줄일 수 있는 것 같습니다.
Hi Z, hi Eric. You know, Canada don't get all the good stuff till later.
하지 않아도 되겠죠.
We're not that important.
힐링 자리를 주로 많이 쓰는데 몰라이기도 하고 해서 좀 7mm 자리를 씁니다.
So when you're doing flapless like this, it's hard to put a wide healing abutment, okay? Because the tissue is so thick.
실판 임플란트가 이제 블루 다이아몬드 임플란트라고 전에는 우리가 옥타본이라고 이름을 붙였습니다만은 블루 다이아몬드 임플란트를 했는데요. 이게 우리가 헥서가 맞지 않았나 때문에 고민하는 경우가 많은데 이것은 헥서 옥타 커넥션이 맞지 않으면 스크루가 좋아지지 않습니다. 그렇기 때문에 지금 이렇게
So the thing about this impression healing abutment is this though. Because these are used for impression for the final, for intraoral scan, is a little different than normal healing abutment. Normal healing abutment is not hexed, right? Or in this case, it's not octa oriented, right? But because you're going to use for impression taking, this healing abutment has actually orientation, octa orientation. And the question becomes is, okay, when you're placing this flapless, how do you know if you got the orientation properly before you screw it in? They design the screw, the screw. Do you see that? This screw right here, okay, they're separate, right? So that they don't engage unless it is seated properly, okay? So it's got that accuracy, safety design built in. I think this is important, right? If you've done older orientation abutments, you know, that was a common problem because if it's not oriented properly and then you scan it and then you get ordering the final crown, it's not going to fit, right? So they understood that, so that's what they designed to prevent that from happening. Okay, very smart.
옥타가 잘 맞았다라는 것을 생각하실 수 있습니다. 거의 뭐 깨끗하게 잘 됐죠. 그리고 실적 필요 없을 것 같습니다. 그대로 힐링이 될 것 같고요. 이런 정도라면 제 생각에는 한
Yeah, Marco. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yeah, if you want to measure ISQ before restoring, you need to take the healing off anyways. That's true. That's absolutely true, right?
6주에서 8주 후에는 이제 로딩이 시작될 수 있을 것 같습니다. 다 물어보실까요?
Does everybody use ISQ in your practice? Do you guys do that before the impression taking?
아시고요.
I do because I have a referral practice. I gotta give my referring dentist some numbers.
자, 엑스레이 찍어서 우리가 한번 확인을 해보도록 하겠습니다.
Okay, now it's in. We're gonna take an X-ray and then find out if he did a good surgery or not.
불편하셨어요?
Yeah.
잘하셨습니다. 그대로 이렇게 드릴게 천천히 일어나시고요.
Yeah.
자, 우선 파노라마를 찍어봐 주시고요.
So they're gonna take a panoramic X-ray
장 찍어주십시오.
and an intraoral photo. Yeah. Okay. Short Q&A session is going to follow soon. Any question, guys? Meantime. What time is it? Okay. Let's see if I can go a little bit faster forward here.
늦게까지 함께 해주셔서
All right.
감사드립니다.
Okay.
CT 이제 방금 다
Good job,
들어가지고요.
Dr. Park. Good job.
다시 보여드릴 텐데
Good job.
우선 질문에 대해서 몇 가지 답을 드리도록 하겠습니다.
So he's reading off the questions from the board.
강도가 좋아서 4.1 또는 4.4만 좋다고 하는데 4.8 쓰시는 이유가 있을까요?
Because the question was, most of the surgeons, they use the core diameter of a 4.1 and 4.4. Was it necessary to use the 4.8? Because the blue diamond implant, formerly known as an Octa 1 implant system, it's got a really strong wall thickness. Is it necessary to use a 4.8? That was the question.
네, 뭐 4.1도 뭐 지금 있는 블루 다이몬드의 강도가 좋아서 될 것 같은데 이
Hey, David.
워낙 본 테이블이 넓기 때문에
He says, yeah, you can use a 4.1 core diameter or 4.4, but because he has such a wide table, right, buccolingually, he said, why not? And also, bone density was poor, so by over-engineering the surface area with the blue diamond implant, he used to decide to use a 4.8.
사용할 수 있나요? 또 타 프로그램을 제작된 가이드에는 사용할 수 없나요?
So what the question was asking is, must you use an R2 guide system to use this surgical kit, or can you use this surgical kit with a different guide system, such as a one guide or other guide system? So that was the second question.
이게 프로그램마다 이게 약간 차이가 있습니다. 높이라든지 이런 차이가 있기 때문에 쓰실 수도 있는데 아마 그 높이 차이를 그 슬리브의 가이드 파트의 높이 차이를 감안하신다면 역시 쓰실 수는 있을 겁니다. 근데 이 가이드 크기랑 지금 쓰는 가이드 파트가 똑같아야 되겠죠. 그런 것은 체크하시고 사용하시면
Yeah, so basically what he's saying is that even though the guide software system may look similar, but they do have a difference slightly in the diameters and the length as well. So you have to be mindful of that. And obviously, R2 sinus kit, guided kit that they designed Densah is to work best with an R2 a guide platform. But you could get like Blue Sky Bio or do it yourself. Like you can change. There are software that you can literally change the diameter and the sleeve length when you're designing, so they can customize the program to fit the R2 sinus kit, guided sinus kit. But you do have to find the right lab technician, digital lab that can accommodate that. Okay, yeah.
가이드 고정핀은 무착가 넓은 경우에 필요에 따라 추가되나요? 가이드
Arthur question: if you don't use a tissue punch, right?
필요에
Okay.
따라서 추가된다는 것은 개수가 더 많아진다는 말씀인가요? 뭐 개수는 얼마든지
Here, that's a good question here.
늘려서
Yeah,
사용하실
one of
수
the
있습니다.
question.
좀 더 편리하겠죠 아무래도.
If the question was, if you don't use tissue punch, is there a danger of trapping tissue in the osteotomy when placing the implant? That's what we used to think. We used to be so scared that if the tissue gets inside there, it's going to have a fibrous growth and it's going to get in the way of implanting the bone and you don't get a proper integration, blah, blah, blah. No, we proved that that's definitely not the case. And what they've shown is that even if you do have some tissue in between the implant and the bone, what happens to that tissue? Resorb away, disappears. Okay, yeah. So that's no longer really an issue, right? That's why we just skip that tissue punch drill. We don't use it anymore, right? Don't use it anymore. But I tell you what, that drill is useful is that if you have guided surgery and you didn't get the good enough bone quality and you put a cover screw and the tissue covers over, 4 months later, that tissue punch can exactly pinpoint locate where the cover screw is. So that is a very clean way of uncovering the tissue during the uncovery stage.
질문을 정확하게 이해를 제가 했는지 잘 모르겠습니다.
Now I missed the other question that Dr. Park is answering.
주기는 저희들도 이렇게 덴사4 측에다가 질문을 했습니다만은 한 50회 정도인 것 같습니다. 드릴의 크기에 따라서 좀
Oh, one of the questions he's answering is how many times can you actually use those drills? Oh, yeah, very oftentimes used question, right? How often can a drill be used and does it need to be replaced? Okay. I used to get these answers from Nobel when I was first using Nobel. They said every 20 times, and they switched to every 30 times, and they switched to every 50 times. Dr. Park asked the Densah company, so how many times can a drill be used? And they have said the rough guideline of up to 50, up to 50. But the reality is this, though, guys, right? That's how do you prove that, right? Because if you're using this kit majority of times in the posterior maxilla, which is a soft bone, you can use it quite a lot, right? But if you're using it in a mandibular area, hard bone, then of course you cannot use that many times.
홀드나 위치를 잡을 수가 없기 때문에 덴사브 자체가 갖고 있는 그 그루브를 활용을 하셔야 됩니다. 뭐 다른 질문이 있으신가요? 됐습니다. 이 정도 하시고요. 혹시 뭐 또 다른 궁금하신 점이 있으시면 저희들한테
Yeah, so I think that was the last question that Dr. PKB is answering.
지금 수술 후에 방사선 사진들이 있습니다. 지금 파노라마
Oh, good.
뷰인데요.
That's a panoramic X-ray.
파노라마 뷰를 보고 계시는데 한 우리 플로어에서 한 3mm 정도 계획된 대로 거의 3mm 딱 올라간 것 같습니다.
So he was aiming for 3mm above the floor of the sinus, and that's pretty much exact, right?
파노라마 봐서는 아니 뭐 사이너스를 뚫고 지나간 거 아니냐라고 생각하실 수 있겠죠.
So he says by looking at pan, it may look like that you've penetrated into the sinus and maybe perforated. So he also took the CT. That's a ray scan. That's exactly same machine that I have. Yeah, so a really good X-ray system. Those of you wanting to get an X-ray system, I can line you guys up to get a good deal from Ray Scan Canada. So what you have to understand is he didn't use any graft material, right? So this is a true test of how the Densah burr works in this situation, right? Did it actually push the bone up? Did it actually successfully lift it? Right? Okay. So I can see right here. Yeah. So you're not going to get the type of a balloon, umbrella balloon up like when you're doing hydraulic lift, like a casket, right? Because you're not doing any hydraulic lift. Yeah, Marco, I'll line you up, man. I'm buying another machine. I've just did another contract with John at RayScan to buy my second machine. So I'll line you up and get a Bice Institute special pricing for you. So anybody who's interested in, let me know. Yeah, you're welcome, Arthur. Yeah. So think of like using a Densah burr type of lift is more like a tenting, rather than a giant lift like what you do with a casket.
볼 수 있도록 하겠습니다. 그래서 원래 내내 메가젠의 라이브 서지를 잘 시청해 주셔서 함께 해주셔서 대단히 감사드리고요. 코로나 잘 이겨내시고 원래 사실 이게 라이브 서지로서는 마지막 라이브 서지입니다.
So he was saying that he's honored to be the closing of the live surgery series by being the surgeon to do the closure. So and he's looking forward to next year to do a actual presentation, right? Yeah, so that was it, guys. Okay. Learned that I want to use that new Densah R2 sinus kit. So hopefully I'll be able to get my hands on from Megagen. So that I can do some cases and then upload some of those on Begin so I can share my personal experience, right? But I've heard about the drill kit and it's very versatile. And that's what Densah Burr, I think, for me is very, very versatile. Um, how do I use my Densah drill for sinus lifting, crystal lifting? Do I use the sleeve system? No, I don't. I developed a pretty good feel for it. But if you're a beginner doctors or intermediate, that sleeve is definitely will give you added confidence, especially when you're coming from a casket to the Densah drill system, right? Okay. Some of you are also asking, can you use a Densah system and a hydraulic lift? You could, but it's not easy. I've tried it because what happens once you break through with a Densah drill, right? You have a seal with the bone oftentimes. And when you're trying to do hydraulic lift, you meet a lot of resistance. Okay. So, Densah drill, I don't think it is meant to have you be used with the hydraulic system. That's what the impression that I get. Okay. Yeah. Shai says, with these late night presentation, I think I need a new coffee maker. Maybe I'll get a sponsor to donate some awesome coffee maker for you guys. Okay. Anyways, we had a good time. And I'm really enjoying this. Inviting you guys to my private study session, and this is how I learn. Right? I see it. I look at it. I critique some of the presenters where they approach their technique, but I also learn a lot. Right? Because I come to appreciate that just because I've been doing implant for 25 years and just because I placed, a lot of implant, that does not mean that I know everything, because I don't. All right. The moment I get arrogant and overconfident, that's when I limit myself from learning more things. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining tonight. And you guys go to bed, and then I'll see you soon. Okay. Take care. All right. Bye bye.